6 o'clock.
Can't take the boss anywhere.
I'll call the meeting to order. Welcome everybody. This is the Lee Board of Selectmen meeting. We will open with public comment. However, if your comment is related to something that's a subject that's already on the agenda, I ask that you wait till we get to that piece of the agenda and then raise your hand. I'll recognize you. You come to the podium. You address the select board directly, please, and state your name, address, etc. Welcome everybody. We're going to start just with public comment. If anybody has anything other than what's on the agenda right now, raise your hand. I'll recognize you. Come forward. Well, that was easy. Okay. So next on the agenda is the Lee Speedway license public hearing. Joe Bassett for sure. Welcome.
I have Norman with us tonight. I'd like to start out by saying this year we've totally changed our business model. Running 23 dates a year, competing against racetracks that have half the overhead we have and less restrictions that can race 60, 70 times a year. We're beating our head against the wall to try to keep the doors open, running against their model. So we decided to downsize our schedule dates and focus on bigger, better races that make sense instead of just opening the door on a race night because we can. So what we're asking for this year is we'd like to add the flea markets back. We'd like to start the season and end it with a flea market with a test and tune on May 7th, May Madness on May 20th and 21st with a rain date of 22nd. And the only reason we're asking for a rain date on that is tentatively right now we do have the Whale and Modified Tour coming back, and it'll be the first time since 1998. So it's kind of a big deal for us. Then we go into June. We're going to race June 2nd to 17th, and Saturday the 25th would be our monster truck show. And that would be it for the month of June. July would be the 1st, the 15th, and the 30th. And then August would be the 6th and the 12th with our car show again on August 20th. We'd go into September 11th. And then Oktoberfest, which would be September 30th and October 1st and 2nd. So instead of having 23 dates, it's 13 race dates in the monster truck show, which is 14 dates.
Okay. Any comments?
Oh, did we open the hearing?
What?
Did we open the hearing? Can we open the hearing?
Yeah, just for the minutes, if you could
Yeah.
officially open it, yeah.
Yes, it's open hearing.
I'm okay with it.
Okay with it?
Yeah.
I'm okay with it. Okay, so let's do this. Can I get, let's see, I think I have a motion.
There is before you do
Okay,
your
motion
vote.
to accept.
I've got it right here.
You got
Looking
it?
good.
I got it.
Can I interrupt just for 1 second? The one thing I didn't bring up that we did last year and we've done in the past is the driver education and safety testing dates on the Tuesdays and Thursdays. Just want to make sure that you realize that was on there too.
Okay.
That's a
There's no-
separate motion.
Yeah, but there's
Okay.
no noise with that, really, so.
So I move to accept the Lee USA Speedway 2022 proposed operations schedule and grant them a license subject to the conditions imposed by the Lee Racetrack ordinance, including inspections by the building inspector, fire chief, police chief, submission of certificate of insurance to the town administrator.
All would you
So
say?
I think we've got, and grant them a license subject to conditions imposed by the Lee Racetrack ordinance, including inspections by the building inspector, fire chief, so on. Can I get a second?
Second?
And can we ask if there's any public comment?
Yeah, I'll get it.
Okay.
Okay, so I got a second, let's see. All in favor, Selectman Bugby?
Can we get public comment?
Yes, I will. I will. I know I'm out of sync with that, don't worry, we'll get it.
But can we get public comment before we vote those?
Okay. Any public comment? I asked for already. Same result. Thank you. Selectman Bugby?
Yes.
Select Person Casper?
Yes.
Selectman Brown? Yes, motion passes.
Here's the second motion that goes along with that for the training and education.
Okay, move to approve the use of Racetrack on Tuesdays and Thursdays from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. for race car education and safety testing. Can I get a second?
Second.
Oh,
Public comment?
I just,
Okay.
Selectman Bugby, when he mentioned this, you said it's good because there's no noise.
yes.
So I think you should,
Well, that's what
Clarify.
I was,
clarify what it's gonna be before they vote on it, so we don't run
Okay.
into problems down the road.
theoretically, there's not the noise of a weekly racing. There's
Yes.
one car on the racetrack at a time, so there is noise, but it's not to the same extent if I had a 12-car feature rolling
Okay.
out
All right.
onto the track. It's one car at a time. We do have to have the fire truck with 2 firefighters and an ambulance and 2 EMTs. So we follow the same safety lines. The chief works with us to cut the numbers back with it's only one car at a time. And so there's noise, but it's minimal noise compared to a race night.
All right.
And it
That's-
ends at 5, correct?
Yes, noon to 5.
Yeah, okay.
I
That's
mean,
fine.
last year, I think we used it once, maybe twice.
Maybe
The year
twice.
before, it was twice.
I think it was one.
So it's not, it's like something that happens every Tuesday and Thursday. It just gives the competitors a chance to come in and check stuff out so they don't have to do it on a race night when we're limited for time.
Okay. Yeah, that's why I was just making sure that it's
Yep.
not like all the noise that usually happens. on
No,
Friday.
no, it's not the same noise
Okay.
level at all.
Thank you. Thank you, John.
Move to approve the use of Racetrack on Tuesdays and Thursdays, 9 a.m., 5 p.m. for race car education and safety testing. May I get a second?
Second?
Roll call vote, Selectman Bugby?
Yes.
Select Person Casper?
Yes.
Selectman Brown? Yes, motion passes.
Here is the packet with the signature sheet.
Joe, can I ask you a question?
Yes.
We approved, you guys doing like a commercial there?
Yep,
How did that go? Did you have
it
any-
went fabulous, and I'm surprised you haven't heard from them. They are so appreciative that we were able to do that.
Okay.
Yeah, it went off without a hitch, and they got everything they needed, and they were very happy, and they thanked you very much, because they realized, that it was extenuating circumstances to make it happen.
And I don't know if it was last year or the year before, you had, I don't know if it was associated with 6 Hour, but you had like different driving things, like classes for them to do administrative driving or something like that. It was like 2 years ago maybe?
Oh, it's been longer than that.
Okay.
It was back when Bill Callen was still here. They did a tire testing and defensive driving thing for 6 Hour. Yeah, they used the track, they used the parking lots, and they did a bunch of different things.
Okay. Well, I was just wondering in terms of your terms of looking for revenue events. I don't know if that's something that you guys were looking into.
And that's something, even back then, it didn't fall under anything that I had just asked for, so I'd have to come back and ask for that. But if it comes across, I'll definitely come visit you.
Okay.
Okay? Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next up, Jen, I don't know how to pronounce your second name. Chris?
Oh, could we close the public hearing first here?
Oh, okay. Make a motion to close the public hearing. Can I get a second? Okay. Roll call vote. Selectman Bugby?
Yes.
Good. Select Person Casper?
Yes.
Selectman Brown? We're closed.
Thank you so much.
Hey, Joe.
Good evening, I'm Jen Sis from Stockholm Regional Planning. I'm the executive director there, have been since May of 2018, just passing around a couple little items for you to review afterwards. Just taking an opportunity to come and visit you all, touch base. and hear what you all have going on here in the town of Lee, as well as to provide you some updates with some of the things that we're working on at Stratford Regional Planning. I think you're all aware of who we are and what we are. As a Regional Planning Commission, we wear a couple different hats. We operate as the Planning Commission as enabled under state statute, but we also are the federally designated Metropolitan Planning Organization for the purposes of transportation planning. We are also a federally designated Economic Development District. There's 3 economic development districts in the state of New Hampshire. We're one of 2 regional planning commissions that play both roles. In terms of how we're organized, decision-making, and how things work at the regional planning level, each community is entitled to 2 commissioners. You have Katrin appointed to represent you as one of those 2. The other seat is vacant. The commissioners are the governing body and decision-making body for all regional planning commission functions, including our budget and how we set up our annual work plan and all of that. They oversee primarily the regional planning commission functions as well as the economic development district functions. Separately, we have a policy committee, which is comprised of the commissioners, plus a few other transportation stakeholders that are specified under federal regulations that govern our transportation planning programs under the federal regulations. Just an item to note, dues-paying communities have a vote as a commissioner and a policy committee member. Non-dues-paying communities only have a vote in the transportation planning programs. So that's just something I want to make sure is clear. So we, have been thrilled to have Katrin at the table for the commission meetings. She doesn't get to vote at those meetings, just as a point of clarification. So what are we working on? We've got a few different things going on. 2019, 2020, developed a strategic plan that directed how we operate internally and some of our new initiatives that we've been working towards. Part of that, we have relaunched our website and have expanded some of our different services. Of note, we have a whole new host of online mapping tools that are now live and available. One of those is part of a project that we recently completed. We've been calling it POP, Promoting Outdoor Play, where we went and inventoried 350-something different recreation sites across the 18 communities in our region. Those are all online in an interactive viewer, so you can tour the region, find a fun place to go visit and play. Also this past year, we completed updates to our long-range transportation plan as well as our comprehensive economic development strategy. As part of those 2 efforts, we did a standalone regional data snapshot. That's prepared in a way to create an easy-to-use, pull-out individual pages for different data points that are of interest to those across the region and to benefit you at the municipal level to be able to easily reference different data points. On the economic development side, we have been tremendously busy. We currently have our regular Economic Development Administration Planning Grant that is part of being an economic development district. We also have a CARES Act grant for economic recovery and resiliency associated with the pandemic. Those were only available to economic development districts. So one of those nice benefits of having that dual designation. Under those programs, we've been busier than you can imagine in the last year or so. We host Tuesday morning phone calls for all of the municipalities in our region. If you are interested in joining us, you are more than welcome to. Those are focused on connecting economic development professionals across the region and working collaboratively and sharing some information and ideas. As part of that effort, we've been recognized by the state's Business and Economic Affairs Department for that collaborative process and the work we've been doing with our Seacoast economic development stakeholders. has been the model for what Commissioner Caswell has created as the Cedars in New Hampshire, and they're replicating this process in 3 other regions in New Hampshire. The state has also provided $50,000 for each of the Cedars to start implementing some different initiatives that can be of benefit. And we've been working on those Tuesday morning calls to prioritize some actions and investments that our municipalities in both our region and the region to the south of us, Rockingham, would like to undertake. So that's one thing that we have going on there that I know should be of particular interest. We also, under that program, have been providing regular assistance to small businesses in the region. That initially started as just a regular stream of communications out to business owners to provide them with different resources and grants that are available as part of the Recovery Acts. Additionally, we have launched and are currently operating a small business technical assistance program that provides 3 hours free of charge of contract services such as marketing, IT, and the web design. There's a few other different topics as well. So that's something that for small businesses in your community is a free service that we are providing. The next step in project under that program that we're going to be launching is a municipal records digitization program. The scanner literally just got set up today. We are in the process of hiring some interns from UNH that will be available to travel around the region. The plan is to provide 2 weeks of free staff time to dues-paying communities first, and then we can negotiate with non-dues-paying communities once we prioritize those dues-paying communities. But it is 2 weeks worth of staff that will come out with the scanner and spend that time here digitizing different records, prioritizing like your large plan sets to start, and then going from there, depending on time availability. On the transportation side, we're once again in the 10-year plan process at the state level. I know Lee has a few different projects that are in the queue for construction in 2023 and 2024. I believe there's the bridge replacement, 125 over Little River, the park and ride that DOT is constructing by the Circle, as well as there's paving scheduled to be conducted on 125. I know Colin, our senior transportation planner, has been chatting with Katrin about some bike ped improvements, and I know they've kind of talked about some scope and some location and the potential that might be a really good project to develop further and submit into a future 10-year plan cycle. And so that is something, kind of just that one-on-one building 10-year plan projects as those feed into the federal transportation process. Regardless of whether you are a dues-paying community or not, we will assist. There is one perk, though, that we do have for dues-paying communities is that we can provide free engineering contract services from VHB that we have a contract with to provide those services. It'd be something that for non-dues-paying communities, there would be a fee associated with that to cover the costs of VHB if you wanted to utilize that service. And one of the reasons for that is that our federal transportation programs are one of the largest pieces of our overall operating budget. They additionally require a 10% match that I'd say just shy of 50% of our dues goes to matching our federal transportation programs. Without dues match, we can't operate our transportation programs, which would create a massive breakdown in the federal transportation processes. So are kind of dependent on that, so we have to have some hooks there and limits. On the land use side, I know a few years back, Kyle Pimentel, our principal planner, had worked with Karen Rossi and the planning board to develop, through a grant that Kyle had written, some new floodplain maps for the town, and subsequent to that, Kyle had worked on drafting some recommendations for how to incorporate those into the town's floodplain ordinance. We're still, happy to help and get that across the finish line, should the planning board be ready to do so. The last project I'll mention that we're working on is what we call Communities for Healthy Aging Transitions. It is through a Tufts Foundation grant that we have in partnership with the Stratford County Public Health Network. As part of that, we're looking at all 18 communities, have hosted a few different forums across the region, a survey, and looking to understand what makes our communities age-friendly. And this is age-friendly throughout the entire aging spectrum, from young to old. And looking at it using the AARP livability principles for what makes a good age-friendly community. So that's something that we have in the works. We'd love to connect with someone, get some additional feedback on the draft community assessment as we get that wrapped up. And with that, I'll just kind of ask you if you have any questions for me. And I'd love to hear some of the things that you're working on that we can do to be helpful, and go from there.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Questions, comments, anything?
One clarification I would make if I could, Mr. Chairman.
Sure.
A couple of weeks ago, I got an email asking if I could affirm that the town of Lee had committed $163,000 and some change to the park and ride on the other side of the circle. And I did some homework and determined that we had not committed $263,000 for the park and ride. And I believe we're all set with DOT. I forget who I emailed at the DOT, but I think Denise and I both had responded, and they they agreed that we were not on the hook for $163,000 and that no one had obligated us to that.
Okay.
Okay. Good. Thank you very much.
All right.
Anybody?
I just want to say I've been really excited to be learning so much about the community around, how we can fit in, I think what's exciting is having Lee actually be part of the conversation and be on the map. I think it's been helpful in both ways. So I'm very excited about working with Stratford.
Okay.
Good.
Great. Just,
Thank you.
sure. And just some of the information I gave you was on how we use our dues and how we apply those, just so that should you consider paying dues again in the future, you have that background information. And just of note, we did choose, the commission did vote to freeze the dues next year at the current rate and not increase those, so it will stay level. Thank you. Thank you.
So, just a quick question, you said that the dues paying communities would be
This is the consent.
offered first, the UNH interns to help with the
Correct.
digitizing. Is that also true of the digitizing, as far as getting this use of the scanner or anything like that, that's just dues paying members too first?
Sure. So the plan is we have the CARES Act funding through September of '22. During that time, we have the funding to support the time of those interns to be present and doing the scanning. That'll also be supplemented by other staff within our office as well. So yes, during that time period, we will be prioritizing dues-paying communities first. To get to those communities, we would not have those grant funds without dues that we use to leverage and match those programs. So we will start there first. Then in that time period, if there are non-dues paying communities that would like us to provide the staff support and someone to be there and work on scanning, we can, but there will definitely be a fee to cover the time associated with that staff contribution. It's probably more than your annual dues.
Just to add, I'm sorry, I was paying attention to something else here and maybe mentioned it or didn't mention it, but the annual dues frozen at the 2020 level are $5,592, I believe.
Yes, it should be in the packet that I just distributed. Yeah, that sounds correct.
And 52 cents.
Sorry.
Yeah, yes, that is correct. So, After we conclude the municipal digitization project under the CARES Act grant, we will still have the large format and the desktop scanner. The intent is that we will allow communities to check them out, like a very expensive library book. We will transport it here to Town Hall for you. We will ask that someone in Town Hall be trained in how to use use the equipment, and they'll be available to you to use.
That's great.
Can you still become a dues-paying member at this point and get into the digitizing queue?
Sure.
Okay.
Yes, we can always chat about that.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Would it be possible for us to vote this evening on paying dues?
I'm sorry?
I said, would it be possible for us to vote this evening on paying dues?
I don't have a pre-prepared agenda item for that, so you would have to make your own motion.
Do you need any more time to think about it, or?
I'm not in favor of it because I don't see what we're getting for that. And in terms of the scanning part of it, they might be able to scan it, but how are you going to retrieve all that stuff? There needs to be a system to retrieve all that information. So if they're just scanning, that's fine, that's part of the problem. But you need to have something to retrieve it. So if they're just files.
Yeah, she can answer that.
Yeah, so we will, first, when we come to each community, we'll be asking you what your file naming convention is, if you have a specific file naming convention that you would like us to use. Otherwise, we can recommend something for you. We will be providing each community with an external hard drive that we will be scanning all of the files to. They will be yours once we've completed the work. All files will be scanned to a PDF-A format. That's the archive version of a PDF. That's what meets the current state laws for municipal record retention.
But how do you find all that stuff?
They'll be
There's nothing that sits above it in terms of searching?
Some other directory or something that...
Well, it's more than a directory. There needs to be something on top of it. So if you're looking for plan XYZ, you're going to have to know the naming convention. So there's
Correct.
usually something above it, a management system, so you can scan those particular things in and then go do a search for whatever it is you're looking for. So
there will not be a database system that's associated with it. It will be incumbent upon having good file naming conventions. So that's why if you don't have something that you utilize that we can help you create, we can also create a file storage hierarchy for how those files are kind of literally filed digitally. So.
because that's what we're looking at before in terms of a system. I think Julie got some quotes for a system that does the whole thing. That was a few years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Don't remember that?
I do remember looking at a system that was gonna be about $30,000, is that what you were thinking about?
I don't remember how much it was, but it was the whole thing in terms of, the whole scanning part of it, the whole systems to support all that stuff. So,
Once it's scanned, you can go back and add it in. You just have to, this is just about getting it scanned
I
and taken
understand
care
that,
of.
I understand that. And the thing is, 2 years ago, when we decided not to go with you, it was a recommendation for our planning and zoning administrator that she thought we were not getting our money's worth. Because years ago, many of the services you now charge for, when we were dues-paying members, now you charge for those. Those used to be free. And she says, for the amount we're spending, we don't seem to be getting anything, and that's why we stopped. So I would want her to come in, because she's one of the principal
That's right.
users of that particular service. So if she feels that it's still not worth it, I'm gonna have to support her, so.
Sure, I fully understand that. I will say for every community, it ebbs and flows depending on what you have happening in your community. Overall, it kind of generally works out. I'll use the example of the code enforcement administrator and planning board clerk from the town of Wakefield as a good example of how to use your regional planning commission. Whenever he has a basic question, something that he's just trying to make sure he does right, he picks up the phone, he calls us and reaches out. That's what we're there for on the day-to-day basis. But just reiterate, of your dues, the $500 or 5,500 and change, half of that goes to matching our transportation programs. So ultimately, that leaves, $2,225. That's not a lot at the end of the day to say that I'm going to be providing a significant amount of services to a community throughout the course of a year. That 2,225, another portion of it goes towards matching the Economic Development District funding, which we do have. That's a 50-50 matching program. That's a big chunk of match that we have to put into that contract. We're creative in how we can meet it, but dues is a large piece of it. So to those ends, at the end of the day, after we take your dues and put it towards those programs, there's not a lot left to provide technical services for those dollars. Figure you've got about 1,500, maybe 2,000 left out of those dollars. Billing rates, I have to pay my staff a living wage, so I have to compete with municipalities, which pay definitely more than we pay. To that end, you figure we've got billing rates of anywhere from $50 to $75 an hour. So if you think about that vis-a-vis what's left of dues, that's not a lot of time to provide other services. So I understand what Karen's saying to that end. I want to be fully transparent with you with how those dues are utilized. And I will say, like on the federal transportation side, it's huge, that chunk of dues that it utilizes. Without those dues, right now your neighbors are paying for you to be part of the federal transportation planning process. They're picking up that slack, and as a result, they're getting less in terms of services that I have left over at the end of the day with the balance of dues.
So we'll need to digest it a little bit and
Yes.
talk to Karen and whatever.
Sounds good.
Just out of curiosity, how many other communities are there in Stratford County that don't pay dues?
Sure, of the 18 communities in the region, we have 4 that do not pay dues.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you.
All right.
Okay, let's move on with Mr. Steve Bullock, Public Works Director.
So when COVID first started, and everyone shut down and went home, police and fire got a first responder hazard pay that was for 8.29 weeks. They were the only 2 departments that got it, so I'm here to request that the transfer station employees, the building maintenance employees who cleaned rigorously through the whole entire thing and were yelled at, there was too much bleach in the solution, there wasn't enough bleach. So they were here every day cleaning for everybody. The transfer station employees were there every day dealing with medical waste and arguably had more face time with the public than any other department in town during that first stretch. And they're dealing with people's trash, and then the highway department employees were out plowing snow still during that entire 8.5 weeks. So I'm requesting it for 3 transfer station employees, 2 maintenance employees, and 3 highway employees. The money would come from the ARPA funds, which is what it was designated for, to be able to give those types of bonuses to people. So at the bottom of the request, I just went by what the fire chief and police department gave. So if you go by the 30 hours plus a week, it would be considered full-time. It'd be 2 full-timers in the transfer station, 1 part-timer, 3 full-timers in the highway department, and then 2 full-timers because they work 30 hours a week in the building maintenance department.
Yeah, I could, and I'm sure the board is aware of this, but when this program was first rolled out, the definition was specifically for first responders under the FRSP program, so clearly you were just following the guidelines. To sort of piggyback on what Steve said, the only concern I would have is you had a few other employees that, although I wasn't here, I believe had significant face time, probably starting with Liz Stone, the assistant town clerk, who actually worked outside in the tent, as I understand it, for a fair amount of time, dealing directly with people, even in the colder months. I did some checking through planning and zoning, and I know Bill Booth, even when he was working from home, still went on inspections. When I spoke with him a little bit, I asked him, were you dealing directly with homeowners? And he said I was either dealing directly with homeowners, or if the homeowner was uncomfortable with me being on premise, or the building owner, then I would deal directly with contracting crews, which I suspect is probably more dangerous than being face-to-face with a homeowner. And I'm not sure of the exact hours, but I believe that Denise, when other people were out of the office, was also in the office dealing directly with people when the town administrator and the town clerk were not available. So I know one of the things I picked up at the Municipal Association conference, Todd Selling from Durham was a platform speaker about ARPA funding and money, and when asked how much money they had contributed and what they had used for the FRSP program, he said that their council had decided not to give first responders the bonuses because at the time they couldn't give them to other employees, and they were concerned about the optics and feelings they might generate, so they didn't do anything, but apparently we're looking at doing a similar program as Steve said for everyone at a later time. Just wanted to throw that in.
I think that something that's really important to think about is that something like this could happen again, and I think everyone that works for the town needs to know that we care and that we are thinking about this. During the beginning of the pandemic, we really thought things were transmitted through touching items, which there couldn't be a more dangerous item to work with. So I feel very strongly that this is important, that we're making this right. That's part of what the funding was for, that's part of the intent, and I think it would be really important to do for everyone that was working and taking those risks without knowing what the risk was and showed up at work and did what we needed to keep the town running.
DJ, comments?
Well, number one, I'll tell you right off the bat, I support, because I remember that while we might not be face-to-face for some of this at the transfer station, we were face to waste.
Yeah.
And that's even worse.
Scary. Yeah.
That's even worse when you're catching bags of medical waste that you don't realize that you're handling medical waste. You don't know what the origin was, and you don't know what the content is, so I most certainly support this.
Are you taking comments now? Can I comment?
Yes, that's a comment.
I agree with what Andy just said and what Todd Selleck said. If we're going to do something, we're going to do it for everybody, not just this particular department or these two particular departments. So I guess I would ask the town administrator, or maybe he can delegate it to the assistant. Bring us a list of who those particular people were and the proposed amounts so we can know the financial implications of what we're doing.
I was really hoping to get a motion tonight so these people could get it for Christmas time.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's important.
That's why I asked
I'm
that.
not comfortable with that. And the thing is, if we get it at the next meeting, what's the next meeting? We should be able to get it out for Christmas anyways.
Yeah, 2 weeks from
Yeah, so there's still work.
Yeah, I should be able to have the names and the finance part of it is cut and dry, so let me double check the names and I'll get right back to the board as fast.
What's the issue with approving this part of it tonight?
I don't know how much it's costing, because he has to go back and check in terms of who this particular thing applies to.
It's the numbers he gives for 5 people, and it was for 8.2 weeks.
Yeah, but that's just for his people. I'm talking about the other people.
Right.
It would be the other 3 people that I named, it would be the same.
Right. And
I would
it's
assume
from
you want to
ARPA
do
funds.
exactly the same number, the 300 and 150.
Gee.
Chief?
Would a former employee who worked through all of that be included? Does Robin work that front window through the whole thing? Just,
But did she get any of the first?
No, she wasn't eligible as an administrative.
Yeah.
There are very strict rules. Code enforcement officers, administrative personnel were excluded in that first round of money in the FRSP
Yeah.
program.
Yes, I would say so. I would say so.
Somebody that
So
doesn't work for the town now,
Someone, there's
I struggle.
they did it.
transfer station people and highway people too, right? That would
What if
include
they
them.
no longer work here because they were terminated?
Yeah, I'm very comfortable with paying anyone that's still here. I think that
That's why I didn't ask in that way, because there's people that
Yeah.
aren't here that,
that becomes a much bigger thing, and
Bigger, could it,
we should have done it in the beginning, we didn't, so now I think,
well, we didn't have any funding for it at that particular time.
yeah.
That's the thing we have to remember. The initial grant only included first responders, so we did that.
Right,
You followed the
I
guidelines
thought
perfectly.
we followed the
Right.
guidelines. Durham chose not to, that's their choice.
so a full-time employee would get $2,487 is what the impact would be per person.
So,
If they were getting 300 a week, and then half that for 150.
so can the town administrator, the assistant, do some quick numbers for us then? In terms of the number of full-time and the number of part-time and what the cost
are you
could be?
including people that don't work here anymore, or people that do work here? I think that's what, this is an
Well,
easy number.
I think that's
Are we
something,
including everything?
I'm including, see, this is the thing that I wanted the town administrator to do offline, so we don't sit here and waste time doing this.
But if he doesn't know what you need exactly, and we change it, that then,
You're looking for a list of forward-facing people that work
Yeah.
through this period.
One person that you haven't mentioned was the town clerk. I think she should be included. She's an employee of, technically of the town. She's an elected position, but she still gets paid. She was still I can't even say it, front-facing all these individuals that came through. So the thing that I've always said, if we're gonna do something for some group of people in town, we're gonna do it for everybody that is included. So singling out just the public works people is not fair. And I think if Robin Tuttle was here during that particular time, and we're doing that for other people during that particular time, then we should do it for her too.
And I can certainly put together a very specific list. The people that I did not include were people that had spent significant time at home. My understanding was that was the finance director and the town clerk had taken.
If that was the case, that's fine. If that is the case. And I don't know if there's anybody else that, definitely Denise. I don't know who else could be, Karen Rossi. I would think Karen Rossi should be included. If she's not, see, that's why sitting here doing this on the spur of the moment is not good. It's
right,
not
I
good
think we need to
form.
have the information so that we can make that decision going down. But he did give us very specific information we can pass a motion on right now.
You have very specific
For those
information
people.
on the public works director's
Right.
people. And I can get you the very specific information for the remainder if you choose.
And we might have to piggyback on another meeting to talk about this, if you want to get it before Christmas, because we won't be able to get it checked probably before Christmas if we
Well,
wait till the 13th.
We have
As you remember, we have a meeting tomorrow night.
We want,
We have a meeting tomorrow night.
Can we discuss it again tomorrow night and then possibly vote?
Yes.
We have a meeting tomorrow night, and we may or may not have a budget committee, select board meeting in the interim too, depending on the reschedule.
But we can plan to make a vote tomorrow if possible, if
I
the
can certainly have
information,
this information for you tomorrow.
that'd be great, and then we can move
so,
quickly.
but tomorrow's also
ABC meeting.
a ABC meeting.
Yeah, but it's our meeting first. We can spend 5 minutes to.
Okay, if we feel as though we need to just
Yeah.
wait until you. do
I
it.
just feel uncomfortable that we're talking about different things and we just need a number
I
associated
don't
with it.
think we're talking about different things. We're talking
I don't
about
think
the
so.
same, we're talking about the same issue for different people, but we're not talking about different things.
But I also asked in the way I asked because people that only came into work and had FaceTime 1 day a week or 2 days a week is a lot different than someone that came in and for 40 hours. And there are people on the list that only came in 1 or 2 days a week that people are now talking about. So how's that show to a person who was here 40 hours a week and hitting the
Who are we
face?
talking about like that? We're talking about Robin Tuttle, she was here
Not
40
talking
hours a
about
week.
Robin.
Who are we talking about then?
Other town employees that were
Some
only
people
in
stayed home and
office
worked
1
from
days a
home.
week and they work from home the rest of the time.
Right,
Okay,
and didn't
well,
have FaceTime, is what I'm
let's-
saying.
Yeah, Are they on Andy's list?
They are now.
Well, who are they?
All right.
There's nothing non-public about this. Who are these people?
And I can
Karen, me,
Karen stayed home?
Karen stayed home for a good part of the week, right? I stayed home, I mean, I was the one that came in the most, but I wasn't there all week long. I came in probably, what, 2 times a week?
Maybe,
Depends,
yeah.
sometimes 3, sometimes 2, sometimes 1. Depended on the
So
week.
then should we consider those particular people part-time for this particular
Yeah,
purpose?
do a partial bonus for those times when
All
they
right,
were here.
I'm
and who were
comfortable with
not.
that. I'm
Yeah,
fine
I
with that.
agree.
All right, I'll calculate this based on part-time for those that were not 40-hour-a-week front-facing.
Do we agree on what was presented? Do we agree on what was presented? He said, this is what I'd like to do for
In terms
these
of
people,
concept,
and
yeah.
so on. Do we agree on what was presented?
Yeah, that's what Andy's gonna do for
Okay,
us.
so just give us some time to finish it out.
Should I get the motion?
I think it's something that's important when, we can maybe put a list of the people
Yes.
that were here and the people that weren't
There you
here.
go.
I know when people have left work, if someone has a patent that goes through and it comes in after you left the job, you don't get it. I know many times I've left a job and then I didn't get a bonus. It's really disappointing and frustrating. I just think that it's not normally done that you give a bonus after someone has left a job. So I'm a little uncomfortable with that.
Well, we're talking about service they did during the pandemic, right?
Right.
So was Robin Tuttle here during the pandemic?
Okay, then that's your view on how you see it, and I appreciate that. It's very kind.
We don't have to agree.
Yeah, no, that's fine, but maybe we
It
could have two
depends
different
on
groups that
what
we
Mr.
vote
Brown
on.
says too, so,
Right.
if he agrees, that's fine. I've been odd man out before, but I feel if she was here doing service for the town during that period of time, she should get it, just like anybody else. And I'm not specifically targeting
There
just
would be
Robin
no-
Tuttle,
I
if
have
there's
no-
anybody
I would
else.
have no argument with that.
Great.
I mean,
So-
she had a piece of glass in front of her that still had openings in it, et cetera, et cetera. She was, she was at risk.
Yep.
There's no argument about that.
And I think that's what the basic of this thing is, acknowledging that risk and giving them some compensation for that risk.
Well, and I
So-
think that's what we're doing. All I'm trying to say is he came, he said, here's a package. I'm asking for this for my package. Can't we just go ahead and approve that package? And hopefully tomorrow night we can wrap up the whole thing.
Sounds fine.
Okay?
So go ahead and pass is what you're saying?
If you're gonna do it all tomorrow night, just do it in one motion.
Okay.
Okay.
And I'll
Just
have
make
that
it all at
information
once,
for
that way you don't have to worry about it if you're gonna do it tomorrow night.
Thank you.
We'll have it done by tomorrow night.
And then the second thing on the list, I would like to request that the select board implement a vacation policy for part-time employees. I talked with the fire chief, since we're the only two with part-time employees as it currently sits. So it would be all his, and we agreed at 25 hours a week, even though my 3 work 30 hours a week, to make it
This
even
is what he said.
across the entire board for police and fire, fire and public works. So all employees that are part-time, that are scheduled for at least 25 hours a week constantly would get 25 hours of vacation time and 16 hours of sick time. And that would be effective January 1st.
Okay. We'll just have to come up with something, right?
No, there's a,
You have the
Motion?
motion language there if you'd like it.
So I know at least in my 2 budgets, it's already funded every year, because they wouldn't be able to carry it over, and if they don't work, they want a week off, they don't work, they just don't get paid, so the money would just get put back. So all we're doing is giving them.
right now, if somebody takes time off for being sick or for
A vacation, they just don't get
They
paid.
don't get paid, and that's really challenging. I think as we're going forward and it's harder and harder to get employees to work, it's important that we offer benefits that make sense. This makes a lot of sense to me.
Okay, I'll enter a motion. Move to approve the new vacation and sick time policy for all scheduled hourly part-time employees, which will allow for the accrual of 24 hours of vacation and 16 hours of sick time for said employees beginning on January 1st and ending December 11th of each year. Said leave time will not roll over from year to year. Can I get a second?
Second.
Roll call vote. Selectman Bugby?
No.
Select person Casper?
Yes.
Selectman Brown, yes. Motion passes.
Since Andy's next, and I have something in Andy's consent agenda, I'm just gonna stay standing here.
That's fine.
Or in Andy's agenda, sorry. We're not at the consent agenda yet.
Are we moving along there? Okay. We'll move along to Andy, town administrator.
Okay, I'll just go in order. One of the first, and let me get to my detailed notes. One of the first questions I had was regarding the town hall use and costs associated with the town hall use right now. The primary user is the library for children's programs, as I understand it. It's also, at least in the last week or two, has been used for some weekend programs, sort of affiliated with the library, but I don't know if the board wanted to adopt a policy for use of that building. Typically for a town structure like that, you, the board or the board's designee would want to know and have some reservation system for use of the building and guidelines for use of the building. And I wanted to bring that to the board's attention. I think there was a very successful flower bar, for example, that brought 140, 150 people to the town hall. I know there was a little bit of concern about traffic on both sides of the road because it was held in conjunction with the Boy Scouts book sale and sort of snarled up the center of town. And when people started asking me about it, I knew nothing about it, and I didn't recall the board granting permission to use the board. Obviously, it was for a great cause. I believe it was the trustees of the library that benefited from the event. And I assume that's something the board wants to encourage, but I also assume the board might want some policy or reservation system or notice of when events are going to be held.
I thought the flower bar was outside the library. I passed it. There was an awful lot of flowers on the table, don't put it that way.
It
And then there
was
was also
inside.
along the line, there was also a long line of people that were coming or standing in queue trying to go into the old town hall, if you would. I don't know what they were showing them in there, but that's.
I think they had the flower bar apparatus set up inside, and they had a line to limit the number of people coming in at the same time. The concern that was expressed to me, and I don't even know the person's name that expressed it to me, was about traffic, and said, there was a ton of traffic parked in the street
There was a
on
lot of
both sides of the
traffic.
road, and dangerous intersection.
Over the white line, that kind of thing.
Well, it was my understanding that I was the one that initiated it, to give them permission for their, to use the town hall, the old town hall, for their children's programs, not for other things.
Well, that was my understanding of what the board
So-
had directed.
I don't think, well, I didn't authorize them to use it for other purposes besides, doing the children's programs, so that's what it's there for. And the other thing, I got some feedback in terms of children's programs. If the town hall is in such bad state, I'm paraphrasing here, why are you letting children into that particular building? So I had to answer that particular question. So I just think we should be just allowing them to use it for the children's programs. That's what their issue was. If they're doing other stuff, no.
Okay, I can certainly communicate that to the board.
That's just me. You've got to hear from the other two as well, but
Well, I'm not sure I'm already comfortable with the old town hall. I mean, has it been, is all the lead paint gone? What's the inside look like? Et cetera, before we let kids running around in there that are gonna pick this up and pick that up and so on and so forth. So
All the lead-
are we ready to occupy it with children?
All the lead paint that is where kids can get to it has already been encapsulated by latex paint. The floor tiles that were considered asbestos are in the town clerk tax collector's portion. That door is locked, they're not allowed in there. And then the other high levels of lead were upstairs. That's blocked off, they can't go up there. We've got old cubicle partitions screwed together around the stairs so they can't go up. So they cannot get near any lead or asbestos. So we made it as safe as we possibly could.
I believe that. I mean, I believe that. My question is it ready to handle, what, 20 kids that are running around or doing whatever?
Yeah,
That's-
it's,
They've been doing it.
they did a pretty good job. It's been cleaned, it looks good.
Yep.
We fixed last week the issue of their panic button, which
That's the second half of
they're not very
the
happy.
conversation tonight.
They're not very happy with, but, you know, you've got 20 kids in a room with one person. If one of those kids has an issue, they're not old enough to, they don't have phones, so being able to run and press a button and know that one of Tom's guys are gonna show up is a lot better than what they were faced with now.
The fire departments looked at it, they're gonna have a drill for the kids for fire drill, et cetera.
No, I haven't heard anything.
No, I understand, I'm just saying, are there more?
I know the fire
Before
departments,
we occupy it with a.
so I know the fire departments looked at it. The fire alarm got inspected Friday.
It is presently occupied, just to be clear. They are using it for children's programs Monday through Friday at present.
Since a few months ago, right?
Yep,
Okay.
since before I got out.
I think the biggest question is, it's one thing, I think they felt the flower bar, there's a possibility of rain, and so they moved it inside. It wasn't raining, it was a lovely day, but they moved it inside. I think the question is, right now, we know it's during the hours that the kids have their, we know when it's gonna be occupied. If we don't know when it's gonna be occupied, do we have, staff on to take care of the problem? It's an old building, we don't know what's gonna happen. So I'm concerned about not knowing and not making sure that other people in the town that are responsible for fire.
Do we have a limit on how many children can be in there at one time?
That would be fire department stuff.
And that, my concern would be the occupancy
Mhm.
of that building while they had this. My concern is that these groups keep scheduling these things. We have no notice of it.
Right,
And now we've got to come in and be the bad guys and say, hey, you got to move these cars, or we're going to tow them because you're partially in the roadway.
right.
We didn't create the problem. So, first thing in the morning, I only have one guy on duty for the first 4 hours. So
You could have
he
scheduled.
or
it,
she is there tied up trying to deal with that
Right.
whole mess. And, it was the same thing with Trunk or Treat. We heard through the grapevine, and they posted on Facebook, hey, park at the town field. I had already had that conversation, said you need to get permission to park there. Nobody called, and they're posting park at the town field, and they had over 100 cars.
Right.
So,
This isn't the only thing. Like, we found out we had to make sure that the lights and everything worked at the Christmas tree for the 4th of December for the lighting on the internet, not
right.
through email via anybody.
So maybe having more communication and working with the library.
Yeah, maybe a mechanism
Yeah,
that says, hey, if you want to do something in town, you have to go through this process. So we know, we require that of businesses.
right,
And if Cobble House Farm is gonna have a big sunflower festival, they have to have a traffic cop
right.
to make it safe. Especially parking there on that corner, crossing back and forth.
I
Yeah,
just know we have pictures of Bedrock Garden, and we were upset with the parking, and
Exactly.
it was exactly the
No
same
different.
problem in the middle of,
and that's why I said we hold businesses to that.
right,
So if you're gonna hold a large event, whether you're a business or not, and it's gonna impact, people traversing through town or pedestrian traffic, we need to know about it.
right.
We'll work with them, we'll put no parking
Of
here,
course.
whatever needs to be, we need to know about it.
Right, it's just the planning head, I think that's my concern. It's not that we shouldn't have these events, it's
Well,
that
absolutely not.
we just need to make sure that as a town we're ready for them.
Yep.
Well, I'd like to get something from the fire chief. I'm concerned that, I don't know, when I was a little kid going to school, they did fire drills. Rang the alarm and, this is the door you go out, or this is what you do, or whatever, but we had fire drills. We had a cap on what the occupancy could be. I don't know if we've done all those.
Yeah, I think there is very definitely occupancy guidelines for the building, and one of the things I can do if the board is in agreement is get the occupancy guidelines and put together some rather simple process for contacting the board if there's a desire to use the town hall for anything other than children's library programs. And you can make the decision on a per event basis.
Yeah, because as far as I'm concerned, we just approved the children's.
Yeah.
And that was why I brought it up, because that was my understanding.
Yeah, and that was one of the reasons I asked them how many kids, so it's underneath the limit, so.
Right.
But when they start having other things, that was not something I even considered, so.
We just want to work
I
with a team.
think it would be helpful in terms of also what the chief said, if the library could let the police department know when they're having their children's programs. I think they're on a consistent basis, but if you can just let them know, so then the chief will know when that particular thing happens. In regards to the tree lighting, usually the trustees contact the town administrator and arrange that. They have in the past,
They
or
contact
you.
me. Yep.
So they
contact
didn't
me.
this year.
Oh, yes, every year. They let me know when they're doing it.
So I guess,
The big difference is the town administrator used to have Bill and Kristen to go do it, and the town administrator doesn't have Bill and Kristen anymore, I
To
do.
do
So
what?
should they let public,
So, last year we kept blowing fuses in it, and we currently have no fuses and can't get fuses to make the trees stay lit. So we're scrambling to try to find fuses.
so I guess the,
Bill just said to me last week, it's all set. So I
It-
had no
it is-
idea this was going on.
It is right now, but last year we blew fuses like all the time, and we can't find any fuses, so.
So I guess, let's change our SOP. So when the trustees contact either of you two,
Mhm.
you two have to talk to Steve. You also have to talk to the police chief to let him know, because he has to schedule a detail, because there's people crossing that road, it's not safe.
yeah.
I did get an email.
Oh, you did?
Yeah, I got an email, I assumed everybody else.
And I
Got
talked to
the same.
Bill Stevens. That's what I do every year. Bill and I coordinate. So turn on the electricity at the triangle, I turn on the electricity at the triangle, I call the electric company, and then we know when it's happening. He told me he tested them, they were all set, so this is the first I've heard about fuses. But that wasn't this year, that was last year?
Yeah, but we still can't find them and don't have any.
Okay,
So we'll just add Steve to the loop and
Okay.
have that.
Yeah.
That way everyone can be involved.
Since Bill and Kristen are now his, not yours.
I think they're old.
So he got the kids in the divorce. You
Okay, the second part of town hall use policy, today we received bills for $251.25 for the installation of the panic button that was discussed, and there's also a $7 a month subscription fee for that. We also got a $161 electric bill for electrical use in the town hall building. And in talking to Steve, I know Steve had said, well, that's coded to the library, right, not me, and I wasn't sure, and wasn't sure what the board's understanding of expenses for security and electricity were going to be for the town hall.
I can see the security. Why is the bill $161 for electricity? Why, when it was empty, how much was it versus?
Yeah, that I don't know, I just,
No one else in the entire town is using this building but the library.
Yeah.
So all these expenses are library-related expenses.
is it for more than one month, maybe?
You don't anticipate that nobody will
Yes.
ever use that?
it's
I think
88
they
for
probably
one.
will ask
That's
for
that's total,
access
that's
to
a
the
total.
building.
It's it's 2 months.
So what was it when it was empty and nobody was using it?
Oh, that I don't know.
That I don't have in front of me, but I can discern fairly quickly.
Because that's almost what my electric bill is, and there's people in my house 30 days out of the month. And
Yeah.
they're only there in the afternoons 2 or 3 days a week.
Yeah, what is that?
So why is it so expensive?
Is there another building that's connected to it?
Because my electric bill at the highway department's about $80 a month per building. And that's with welders running and
Is there like a dehumidifier running or anything going on in the building? What
No.
is?
There's nothing that runs there, comes on, goes off, whatever.
I'd be
The place
curious
that-
if they have an electric heater
above
in
freezing.
use
That's what I was wondering
while they're
about.
in there.
Yeah, I can certainly check into that. I guess the overriding question that I discussed with Steve was, who do we charge, who does the bill go to? Is it government buildings or is it the library?
So I've been paying the electric bill right along until that bill. And I had agreed when we put in the button, that I would buy the button because it's part of the alarm, but they needed to pay the subscription fee to have it work. And the reason there's a subscription fee is because when we moved out, they shut the phone off and you can't, so then the alarm stopped working.
Yeah.
So in order for them to have a panic button, they need, it's a cellular device, so they're paying their subscription for that, but the alarm for the building also now works as long as the button stays in the building.
Okay. So I guess what I would like to propose is that whatever the difference is, like, we know how much it was when there was nobody in it.
Yep.
And whatever the bill is above and beyond that, I think the library should be paying for that. Because there's a set charge, whatever it's using, I don't know what's in it, but.
I'll see if I can discern that.
Well, yeah, they should definitely pick up some of the cost of operating the building.
But
I'm okay with paying for well, you already paid for the alarm itself, but the monthly fee, they should be paying for that, in my opinion. And also the difference in terms of electricity, they should be paying the difference.
Yeah, so we had lights on the outside of it that turn on and off.
What is the heat?
I'm sorry, Chief?
The heat in the town center is all one bill because all the buildings are getting propane from the one tank behind Karen's old office. So it's all listed as just
If
town.
you were keeping it at 50 before,
Right,
and somebody's putting it to 70 and just leaves it at 70 all the time,
right.
that's gonna use a lot more too.
Does it have a controllable heat thing?
Yeah, it's got one of the electric ones like they're on the wall right over there.
Is it controlled like this one?
Yeah, and
Like the
it's set,
box on it?
it's set to turn down and then it goes back up to like 70 when, it'll go back up to 70 like 2 hours before they get there because
Okay.
if we're figuring it's gonna take that long for the building to get heated back up.
And the wood and the floors and everything.
Library is part of the town, so I don't know if we want to go into figuring out how much
Well,
that
I
is.
think we're gonna be paying, it's just gonna change the budget of the library. I just think it's important that we understand what cost is related.
Well, I'll get a breakout of what the power costs were before and after. Moving on, I had sent an email regarding employee evaluations. I wasn't sure of the exact schedule, so I asked department heads if they could have evaluations back to me by the 15th. At this point, I think they've all been working on it. The police department is complete, and I have those evaluations for the board. And I didn't know if the board had anything they wanted to add to that.
No, just caught me off guard. I'm usually the one that tickles well, not, I don't say tickle, I won't tickle you. Remind, how about that, remind.
Well, I was looking through things and saw that and thought I
Good
should
catch.
have started this in October, probably the day I got here, to stay on a normal schedule, but.
Thank you for catching, and
Yes, thank
thank you to everyone that's writing these, without as much time to write them, so that's really helpful.
The next item I had, the police chief had approached me regarding the FFCRA policy, and this was the policy that expired in December of last year that extended, sort of waived using vacation days and sick days for COVID-related illness. The police department has 2 employees that had extensive quarantine in the last month, I believe a full 14 days each.
14 and 10.
Yeah, and 14 and 10, and one of those employees is about 56 hours in the hole with regard to personal time. They basically used all their vacation, their sick days, and I did check with Joanne. The other employee is not in as bad a situation, but certainly used a lot of vacation and sick time. The chief had come to me and asked what the board's policy was with regard to how things had been handled and what we might do for these people. I did check with Joanne and checked on the federal website, and as I said, the Families First Coronavirus Response Act did expire December 31st of 2020. I think the board had addressed it last year at least once, but the policy has expired. Right now, there's nothing on the books for coronavirus or any other type illness. If somebody gets the flu, if you move forward with something, if somebody gets the flu for 10 days or what have you, you might be called upon to do the same depending on your decisions. So I told Tom that I would definitely bring it before the board and see what the board's stance was, if they are sticking to the federal guidelines, if they want to do something in between. My only concern as town administrator would be what we've already talked about earlier. If you do something special for a couple of people, you're probably going to end up having more people want you to do something for them too. And I don't know if Tom had anything to add.
My only concern was for the one officer who did not have enough time. You know, I was out with COVID, I had plenty of sick time, I'm not worried about it. The other employee had enough sick time to cover it, but there's one employee who's new, hadn't accrued enough yet. So that officer is, like Andy said, 56 hours short of the 80, and that would use up what vacation, sick, and personal time they have at their disposal now.
The length of the quarantine depends on a lot of different things, and so that would be shorter if in a different situation, is that correct?
Correct.
So I'm not inclined.
So he could, okay. He has no vacation time coming, but he will earn vacation time through this next year, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the question is, would we let him draw down on future vacation time? I mean, if we gotta come up with, something for him.
Right.
Well,
I mean, I don't have it, you know, the only thing we have is what's coming.
Right.
So at least to keep groceries, but I mean, until we figure out what else we might be able to do as we move forward, we could borrow against his vacation time. Maybe he's only
Right,
gonna
so
be
the
another
56
5
hours,
days.
they're in the hole
Maybe it's gonna be
alone.
10 days, maybe it's gonna be, why not?
yeah, that's something we could do. The other thing is that the issue that it brings up for me is the long term, because now we're into the Omicron stage. How much more are we gonna have to deal with? Because we're not done with this.
I'm not even
And-
close to
and
being
going
done with it.
forward, how are we gonna deal with this? Because this is not gonna be the last time this is gonna happen to one of the chief's employees or any of our employees.
No, Scott,
So what are we gonna do?
we don't know.
And to select person Casper's comment, this particular officer, because of their vaccination choice, had to be out much longer
Oh, I see.
than those of us who are
That's where the
vaccinated.
problem is for me. I'm sorry, but I feel very strongly that you should be vaccinated if you're working with a public.
So that was an issue.
If that person
because
was
there was
The
vaccinated.
rest of the
Well, I
story.
don't-
Well-
Get the rest of the story.
So I did not get
I
charged.
don't think we should be in
When
a
I was
position
sick.
to criticize what vaccination they took.
But it affects
No.
how that person has to handle that situation. If you have a choice, you can wear masks, you can be vaccinated, and you're not choosing that, why do we as a town have to pay for that?
That's what we're talking about, because it's an extended period that you have to quarantine.
Which would not have to happen if you were vaccinated.
So how about if we do what Mr. Brown suggested is let him go into negative, and as he earns it, he can get out of the negative. Or she, I don't know who the
Right,
correct is.
thank you, yes. I don't see any other way of doing it than
Thank
that.
you.
That's clean.
It's
Sounds
not-
good to me.
not-
Just wanted to clarify, because the question was asked,
Thank
so
you.
I'm good.
Thank you.
Okay.
Not an easy question.
You're up.
Yeah, on to the easier stuff.
Yeah.
Easier stuff.
I wanted to call attention to the town's receipt of the DES grant award of $245,000 for Chelsea Brook Geomorphic Culvert project. And as someone immediately asked me on Facebook when I put that up, what does geomorphic mean? And it means that it contours with the channel, the floor of the channel of the stream, as I'm sure you're aware from Steve telling you about that. But I think, kudos to Steve.
Absolutely.
These folks for getting that together and getting the money. While Steve's standing here, I'm gonna jump ahead in my miscellaneous comments too. We had, sorry.
Chelsea Brook, so when are we gonna be doing that?
Hopefully,
Spring?
no, it has to be a little water, so hopefully late summer, early fall.
Of 2022.
Yeah, there's still like a three-part procedure that you have to go through.
Yeah, I still gotta do a bunch. I talked to DES for like 2 hours on the phone today.
Yeah, it's a lot.
The money all came from the Route 16 widening. So they paid into the ARM fund, and we applied for what amounted to be 65% of the total project, and we got all of it
That's great.
that we
So
asked
is
for.
Tuttle Road going to be closed for a period of
It's
time?
Packers Falls Road.
Oh, Packers Ball, sorry.
Yeah, probably like a week, maybe a little bit longer.
Essentially, the two additional components are the ARM fund grant agreement, which needs to come forward, and a certificate of authority indicating that folks signing the grant agreement have the legal authority to do so. It does take a little bit of time, and I believe require public hearings.
Okay.
And we're still waiting on final approval of the 125-page wetlands permit that was submitted along with the grant, which if they're gonna give us $245,000, the wetlands permit will pass, but that's all part of it.
And while Steve is standing there too, the Director of Finance came to my office late this afternoon and showed me a $30,000 check for recyclables that we received from Northeast
Wow.
Resource Recovery, and she said that in her memory, that is the largest check she's ever seen from
Nice work.
RRA, so.
Helping the town.
Along with the $7,000 check and the $5,000 check we got in the last 2 weeks also from them.
So to anyone listening, recycling is a great way to help fund things happening in town.
Yes.
Please recycle.
I threw on the agenda just because we hadn't made any decision to my mind, but we still have the MRI salary survey. We have COLA information, and just wondering what the board wants to do with regard to those potential adjustments. The other thing I mentioned this to Katrin in speaking, but I know on boards that I've been in the past, sometimes, particularly if the cost of living percentile is rather high, we've presented a COLA adjustment for the employees as a warrant article, and let the town decide what they were willing to do or not. Twofold reason for that. One, we had pretty good success with the townspeople supporting COLAs for the employees over the years, and two, if we get a default budget because of things like a reval happening recently or tax bills going up, that it kept the COLAs out of the default budget, so they didn't necessarily fail. But I wanted to toss that out there for the board's consideration as a strategy I've seen that worked well in the past. And although you've got nowhere near as many default budgets as boards I've been on have received, so maybe that's not a concern.
Yeah, I don't remember we've ever had a default budget.
One of the other things I had done was, I know last week we had talked about, I had mentioned that MRI had an estimate of $26,800 and change for implementation of the 4 positions that they felt should be adjusted wage-wise. And there was some talk about the ancillary costs, essentially FICA, Medi, and retirement. And I did a simple breakout per $1,000 of wages, and I can send this to board members, but for a town full-time employee, you're looking at $216.56 of ancillary cost per $1,000 wages. For a fire department full-time employee, that amount moves up to $329 per $1,000. And for a police department full-time employee, you're looking at $338.50 for additional cost per $1,000 of salary. And I can either send that to you, or I'll just include it as we discuss the MRI salary.
If I understood correctly, it's $338 per thousand?
Right, that's for a police officer.
Yeah.
It's $329 per $1,000 for a full-time fire department person, and it's $216.56 for a town employee that's full-time. And obviously, for the part-timers in those positions, it's much lower because we don't pay retirement. And The police and fire, as I'm sure you're aware, differ because we don't pay FICA and Medi, we pay the higher retirement rate, and there's a separate rate for fire and police under the state tables for retirement contribution, which goes up considerably every few years because the legislature keeps handing that cost down to municipalities.
Because our town employees are very specific and that sort of thing, I know in the past when we've discussed raises, we've discussed it in non-public and then brought it forward in public. What is the appropriate way to go forward on this conversation? I don't want to talk about people individually.
I think you could certainly do it that way. You can talk about salary adjustment in non-public. It's certainly public information. Anyone can read you for what you're going to pay your employees if you want to discuss, particular employee attributes and why you might adjust beyond just the data given to you by MRI. Certainly you want to go into non-public, but.
Yeah.
Sounds good. Because we have a vote.
So discuss in non-public and then bring it forward and discuss out here once we've gone through and have a board decision.
And just a few other things I had. The heat is back on in the Daly building, and Mr. Daly is paying for the furnace repair, which was close to $4,000, so I'm glad that they're covering it. Another question I had for the board, I don't know if you've done a recent perambulation, but as near as I can tell, the last perambulations were done, and they were just one line apiece, 2011 and 2013, and the statute requires you do them every 7 years, and Lee has borders with 6 towns, so you've got a number of bounds that, in the old days, you were supposed to take a chisel and hammer and put your initials and the date on. Most towns use a little fluorescent forester's paint now just to indicate that they've been there, but that's something you may want, and I can certainly, so I know in the past it looked like a resident by the name of Mr. Monahan had been appointed by the Board of Selectmen to handle perambulation for them. I know Nottingham and Epping have very good perambulation data available. I'm not familiar with Madbury and Durham and Newmarket, but
So for the people that might not know, what exactly is perambulation? Just, in case somebody doesn't know.
you, as the Board of Selectmen, or
Yes.
your designee, should identify each of the bounds and means separating you from other communities, and it's
the
the practice dates to well before the country was a country. It's part of original Old English law, but it's still relevant. In fact, the town of Lee had legal action against somebody on the, I believe it was Lee-Epping border, who actually removed the original granite marker from their property because they thought it was unsightly. And that was just a few years ago.
It was on Campground Road.
So make pretty perambulation markers.
As I said, it appeared to me in Lee records that the board had designated their role in the perambulation to Robert Monahan, and he had met with the other select boards or their designees. As I said, I know Nottingham typically has a very enthusiastic group of select people that want to go out in the woods and identify the posts.
That sounds fun.
Yeah, Bob Monahan doesn't live here anymore, but,
So he may not be so interested.
Yeah.
yeah, I've never done it.
Should be
Since
put it.
2014, I've never done it. So-
Well,
Wouldn't Public Works do that?
You could designate public works, or I think you have to
Because he has
designate a
nothing else to do.
designee, not a department.
Yeah.
You can
Yeah.
certainly do that.
Okay.
Or maybe it's something that we can do when it's nice out.
Could we make it something we offer up for someone to work with us on?
I believe you can. You should make a motion to appoint the people you're working with as designees, though,
Perfect.
because it is statutory, so.
Okay.
And now is not a bad time of year to do it if you're not concerned about looking like a deer and being shot at because there's no bugs and there's not a lot of snow.
Got a lot of orange.
What's next?
All right.
And
Do we have to make that motion now?
that is,
What,
Well,
you know who you want to do it?
No, do we have to make any motions to get that?
you don't. I just wanted to advise you that you're past 7 years as near as I can tell.
Perfect. We don't want people crossing that border and taking part away.
You just want to make sure your markers aren't being moved.
Got it.
And that was all I had. I got it.
Hold on.
You can ask him.
Steve's gonna say,
I'm
don't
gonna ask
volunteer
if they
me.
want me to find somebody. I might know someone that might wanna do it.
Okay.
Can I get your permission to ask him if he would like to do it?
Is he a resident?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure he knows where they all are anyway,
Okay.
Perfect.
Okay.
Sounds like a
Good.
nice,
because I think he's done it with this Monahan guy at least once.
perfect.
But I'll ask him and then I'll, I actually might be able to give you an answer tomorrow.
If he has a GPS, it's really helpful.
Get a price,
Hey,
get a price, see how much he wants.
are you gonna ask him like you asked him to do the form for me?
Yep.
Great. By the way, I got that today.
Good, thanks.
Thank you, Steve.
Yeah. Where are we?
The consent agenda.
Can I ask a question on A? Why are you giving that to us? Is there something special about it, or?
Nope, it requires a motion from the board and signatures.
Really?
It's just the county tax bill.
I don't ever remember doing that before.
Well, it's just
a
embedded
big
in the
bill.
consent agenda. Motion to accept the consent agenda as presented.
Seconds?
Roll call vote, Selectman Bugby?
Yes.
Select person Casper?
Yes.
Selectman Brown? Yes. Passes. Any miscellaneous, unfinished, anything?
Oh, can we do our signing? Please?
There is the signatures for the consent agenda.
Okay.
There are the signatures. And this is the second part of that.
You want us to start on that one?
Joanne's papers.
Okay, great. These are yours today.
So, did Joanne find somebody to take the check over? Or is she not doing that this year anymore? For the county?
They're paying that ACH now.
I didn't, they are paying any ACH?
The county check, I saw it written out. It was a check.
Right.
I never held a check from her.
She did not discuss delivery with me, but I did hear her, and she may have made arrangements for a police
She
delivery.
usually, well, actually,
I've done it for the last 2 years.
Yeah.
So,
all she's gotta do is call, I'll go pick her up, or whoever.
I can check with Joanne and see what arrangements she's made and let you know tomorrow, Scott.
Perfect.
Yeah.
I don't know, I just never saw a check that big in my hands before.
well, if you want to be nice, you can take it over.
I would be happy
Visit
to.
the nice lady.
I
She
just don't
gets
have a
out.
car tomorrow.
She bring, well, no, the police.
No, we bring
Police
it.
give you a
Oh,
ride.
great. Oh, that's
Yeah,
very
you
fine.
get an escort. And
I would love
also,
to do that.
if you're very nice, she'll give you a candy cane.
Well.
That's
I
the only
mean,
reason I
Have
did.
you met me?
Well, you can bring it home for your kids.
They're very nice.
He never offered it to me, but
You mean you never drove me? I don't think.
I drove you one, yeah.
You did?
Sorry.
Oh, she didn't do it.
You know, I drove Joanne
Oh,
You want me to sign it?
one
Yeah.
day.
yeah.
Yes, there are 3 lines.
I am free and
You need
available.
to sign each one.
That's helpful.
But just give me a call when they say the check's ready,
Great.
and
Saw it today.
pick you up.
Yeah, I don't also want to be carrying a check that large because you have to give it up. That's more painful than carrying it.
I give it up to pay the things we need to pay to make our world go round. That is just fine with me.
The world go round, or at least dispatch the nursing home and the jail.
Which, you know, kind of important things to do. Beautiful.
Didn't I just sign these? Didn't I just sign these?
We just gave it back to you for fun. We're just trying to
Oh,
keep
no.
your new business.
I signed one in that packet already. You don't need two.
Are there 2 copies?
There's 2 copies. County commissioners and Nimitz vacation.
Figured we had extra.
I'm not signing it twice.
And you're on the, to the right, there's a convex one, right?
That's what I thought. So you
I
didn't
think those
sign
have
it.
gone to the chair, yeah.
Yeah, those are his copies, I can tell by the.
We can take them.
You guys for that?
No, no, we don't need those signed. Those are good.
We have that position.
Thank you.
I'll have to check tomorrow before we start telling this guy that it's
Okay. Motion to enter into non-public
Second?
per New Hampshire RSA 91-A:3, Roman numeral 2, small a in paren, roll call vote required. Selectman Bugby?
Yes.
Select person Casper?
Yes.
Selectman Brown? Yes.
Just trying to keep us moving along.
As long as you get the actions you took, good generally.
Yep.
Yes, okay.
So I move to seal the minutes with the police chief.
A second?
All those in favor say aye.
Aye, roll call, yes.
Roll call vote? Selectman Bugby?
Yes.
Select person Casper?
Yes.
Selectman Brown? Yes.
The other minutes we will leave
And
unsealed.
Andy will get to share the good
So
news.
Andy gets to deal with it. So you can get the other one, if you can initiate those particular salary changes for us.
I can?
And that will be coming out of ARPA funding.
So this will be part of the minutes then?
Yes.
Yes.
We're not going to announce all the changes,
I'll just
but,
make a copy.
That way it can be something that's
And
totally.
we need to get the
Keep a copy.
oh yeah, that's the other thing. Mr. Town Administrator person, could you, don't do
It's been
that.
a long night.
Could you, those particular salary changes, those are unbudgeted.
Okay.
Our current operating budget.
So
So if you can tell us the cost of those particular changes with their ancillary, expenses, so we know how much to charge, those will be going against the ARPA funding that we got,
Okay,
this is the first year.
I'll do total cost preparation.
The other thing is when you've got those in place, we'll need to transfer those to the ABC so they know what those particular changes are.
Yep.
It's the intention of the board, I believe, that at some point after we get done doing the evaluations, we're gonna go through and do another series of merit and across-the-board changes.
This is
So
just
these are just the ones
job.
based on what we saw in terms of the market information that we had, which wasn't that great, but
You can complain about it again, or we can move
yes,
on.
I like to complain about it, so. But if you could do that.
Yes.
And I believe, we didn't talk about it though, when will these take effect? With the next paycheck?
Yes.
Next paycheck.
Do
This,
you agree?
Not
Yes.
the one we're in, the next one.
okay.
So that will give Joanne time to do her magic.
Very good.
And if you
The
have,
next paycheck started yesterday,
Why can't we
Today.
just do it?
today, so you
I
wanted to
just
start.
don't want to give, I just want Joanne to have enough time to do them, so.
Well,
What do you think?
She has
Do you think
enough
she'll
time.
Yeah,
to
well,
do
we
it,
just
because
did a
we
payroll for
The
this
cycle
week,
started,
so the next
the
payroll
cycle
isn't for 2
started
weeks.
today,
Yeah.
she still
Yeah.
has 6 days
That's 2 weeks. I think
to
that's.
implement.
All right,
Let's do it for
so
this
So
pay.
now-
implement it with this paycheck then.
Effective immediately.
Immediately.
11:29.
Well, with the
Meaning,
pay period started yesterday.
it started yesterday.
So
So it
effective
starts
tomorrow.
retroactively.
Yes.
11:20.
Oh, we're doing retro?
Retroactively? Yes.
Well, the pay
No,
period,
it started today.
well, it starts today.
Yes,
Okay, it starts
so
today.
you want it to
Immediately.
be effective today?
Yes.
Okay.
So
But
9/29.
go to the
Monday.
29th again.
That's the
Let's
29th.
You can
change
just
it
change
again
it
so
a bunch
Andy
of
has to
times.
change it, then we'll change
I
it
just
back
wanted to
again.
see if he has any erasable ink, that's all.
No matter if I have the wrong date, Joanne will tell me.
Yeah, absolutely.
No,
Yes.
that won't work.
Whatever it is that needs to happen, we'll make that happen.
So one of the other things is, when you get those evaluations, if you can send it to, what we've done in the past, I don't know, Katrina, if you want to do it, but they're usually sent to one of us, and one of us scans them and then sends them to the other two.
Okay.
I don't know, I don't mind doing it, but Katrina, if you want to do it, you can.
Because they're not being sent to Andy?
I'm not, they're giving them to me, but I'm not looking at them.
Oh,
The
okay.
police department is a sealed envelope.
Then I'm very happy to do that.
So if you could give them to her when you get them, and Katrina, if you can scan them and send them to Carrie and I.
Okay.
then we can
Just-
look at them.
So, we'll not be in town from Thursday to Sunday. My
Well,
9
they're
days
not
are,
due till the 15th.
just so you know, I just want to make sure.
But I'll get them to you as soon as I receive them. As I said, I have the police ones locked in my desk, and I can start with those. And I talked to planning and zoning, and I know she's going to be
Great.
in the next day or two as well.
That makes
And I did recirculate your letters, as I mentioned in that email from last year. You had sent letters to department heads about, some of them you had no commentary, some of them you would advise them specific things you'd like to see. And
So for the next, I don't know if we want to do it the next one or the one afterwards, we have to schedule interviews with all the department heads.
Okay.
We
So
have to what, I'm sorry?
schedule interviews with the department
Yeah,
heads.
yeah.
So I would say if we could do a non-public for personnel at the next meeting for the three of us to talk about each of the employees' evaluations.
But that's before it's due, isn't that the 13th?
Yeah, but the 13th, they don't do evaluations on themselves. We do them for the department.
Oh, you
heads.
mean, okay.
They're gonna give, Andy's gonna give you the ones that the department heads have done for their staff.
You're talking about us talking about their
Yeah,
evaluations.
we have to talk about their evaluations,
Deal.
and then 2 weeks from there, we can have a conversation with them, so that puts us at,
Right before Christmas, or after Christmas.
Change the subject just for a second. Denise, did we get any feedback at all on the lead readers thing?
After Christmas.
we had at least one,
Yes,
I think
well, I
maybe-
sent, who was it?
I just wanted to remind you, did we publish it? in,
Yes.
Okay,
and we can continue to publish it.
okay.
Might take a
One
little
person
while.
reached out to
Because we're
me
coming
and I
up, the only
forwarded
reason I
them
asked
to
is
him.
we're coming up on our goals and objectives
Yeah, yeah.
review, et cetera, so I wanted to.
Yep, that makes sense. But people might be more likely to join in January, so at least we can keep that
So-
moving.
wait a minute. So on the 6th, we can talk about department heads. On the 20th, we can talk about
No, 13th and then 20,
13th.
The next meeting is the 13th.
Yep.
The
We're like-
6th,
Oh, I'm
I
only
have
doing a
no
week.
idea.
oh, that's what we need to talk about. Do you want to do December 6th for the financial planning
Planning
tool with
Uh,
Chief Nemeth?
Sure. Sorry. I
Just
just
this
can't,
week, the
I
6th is
can't do it
like,
Wednesday.
the
I'm
6th
double
is-
booked.
the 6th
Let's see,
is
we have a
Monday?
meeting tomorrow,
Okay.
right? We have
That's
a meeting
ABC.
tomorrow, which I assume is the financial planning tool meeting.
No, it's ABC.
Oh, it's the ABC, and then the next meeting is a financial
Well, I
planning.
can't make that one.
No, that one's
so-
canceled.
Huh?
This
That one's
Wednesday's
That one
meeting.
was canceled.
Wednesday is canceled.
So we're trying to see where we can move it to. We can move it to the 6th.
And I did get Back Bay to figure out what was wrong with my email on my phone
Oh, thank you.
as of this morning, so I now have access to my authenticator didn't
Oh.
like.
I didn't like it.
So
So
December.
the 13th, and then the next meeting is the 27th.
No, yes, but 6th is for the meeting we were gonna have from 5 to 6, or no, from 5 to whatever.
It will go
Wednesday.
from 5 to 6:30 because Nemeth has to leave at 6:30.
There we go.
So 5 to 6:30 on the 6th.
Oh, Jesus.
But we can meet on the 13th,
But we're not
have a
meeting on
discussion,
Wednesday.
and then the 27th.
We're not meeting on Wednesday.
This
We can
Wednesday.
move it, right?
We're not meeting on Wednesday.
We are not, yes, we're just moving
So
it.
December 13th, you're going to talk about the department heads.
Yes.
And then the next
The
meeting.
27th, they need to show up.
they
But
need
that,
to
you
show
know
up.
that that's the 27th
I understand
of
that.
December.
So I guess another thing, find out if
Does
they're
that
gonna be
seem
here.
odd to anyone? Yeah, I mean,
The
Well,
thing
it's
is,
in between, what is that, in between Christmas?
New Year's and Christmas, yeah.
New Year's.
We can't talk about it on the,
we can talk about it on
On
the
the
13th,
3rd?
but then you have to do, well, on
no,
the
no,
3rd.
sorry, the 10th of January is the next meeting after that.
What's the 10th?
The 10th of January would be another select board meeting. Can we talk
Well,
about
we
that?
can't leave it too late because we're talking about raises again, and they have to be in the budget.
Okay.
I'll see if they're available.
Okay, select board is tomorrow for the
Not
budget
nice.
workshop.
Friday is the holiday for employees that week, so I would assume that people are going to be available on the 27th.
Select board on December 1st? No. Yes, there's a select board on December 1st.
Not anymore.
No,
Not anymore.
Not
No.
anymore.
correct. It's now on the 6th.
It's
So
on
you
the
can just move
6th.
it.
Okay.
So, and if you can find out who's gonna be here on the 27th, that would be great.
Level?
I just wrote it down.
Oh,
Denise is
Well-
on it.
I'm on it.
She's assisting awesomely, as always.
all done?
One quick question that I would throw out, and I have no feeling either way on this. Kara Rossi has 4 meetings this week, including 2 longer ones at the end of the week. And she asked me to ask the board, her budget has one change. She put a change in for if you wanted to move forward with online budgeting. And if she was not available tomorrow night, she wanted to know if the board would be okay with me presenting the budget, or
That's
if it was
fine with me.
of dire importance that she was here.
Four
Yes,
meetings in
it's
1 week,
okay.
man.
What
That's
is
rough.
online budgeting?
I'm not online budgeting, online
Tuesday,
building
Wednesday,
permit.
Oh, okay.
She had put numbers in, that was the only increase she had if you wanted to
Yes,
move
it's
forward with
okay.
that.
I think that's fine.
And we will not be getting a presentation from the CIP people?
That was my understanding from Karen, that she had received no further word. Her specific comment to me was, I have one change on my budget, there's no CIP.
Okay,
Okay.
She said if they say, no, they want to see me, I'll be there.
great.
I just told her I'd ask.
I think if there's one
No,
change,
we're fine.
that's pretty easy.
And she has the backup information that she's going to give me for that, so.
Okay, that's fine, because she really doesn't have things that change anyways.
No.
So-
Work-life balance, got it.
Oh, I'm gonna stir the pot here.
You are such a pod
Can you
stirrer.
can you speak to her about this whole Stratford Regional Planning thing?
Yes, I can.
Because as I recollect, she's the one that recommended that we
The
drop it.
last time we talked to her, she said, no, we don't get
Great, I
our
don't know why we
money's
have to ask
worth.
her again.
She went through
Well, I just
all-
wanna just make sure that's still the
Yeah.
case.
I can see if she has any different feelings than she's had the last time she talked to us.
Conservation Commission feels the same way,
No,
that they don't.
that's not what they said to me. They said that to you?
Oh, well, just recently?
Yeah.
I
Have you talked to
think
them recently?
No, well, not in the last
Dawn
like,
has
month or so.
expressed to me that she would like
Yes,
to be a
that's,
part of.
Okay,
so she's not the same as what Karen says. She's saying that she does think it's a good idea.
all right.
That's what I got
Previously, they
expressed too,
said
yeah.
no,
Yeah.
they agreed
No.
with Karen, so.
No, I think Dawn at least was pretty straightforward
I
in
spoke
saying
to other
that she would
members
support.
and they also were
They
supportive.
have a
Membership.
meeting tomorrow night, I'll ask them.
If you
for sure.
could, that'd be great.
Okay,
We did.
so if you can just check with Karen, that would be great.
I will.
All
I've
right?
had enough fun.
Yeah, oh my goodness. It's so cold in here.
Mhm.
Denise, are you dying?
It's 66 degrees.
66.
I've already texted.
I normally wear like really snuggly clothes. I'll have to start doing that.
All right,
Are we
Karen, do
good?
your thing.
Are
Do your
we
thing.
good?
Yeah.
Yep, do your
Meeting
thing.
adjourned.
Thank you.
Have a good evening.